Hello, we are live. How is everybody out there on this Sunday night? It's Monday for one of our guests, but it's Sunday for most of us. Welcome to the Bloodstream. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Um, we will do a bit of a Q&A a little later on tonight, so you guys stick around for that. And hey, Shannon, hey, Sean, Big Crack Rock, Carlos, Richard, the Daily Ghost, Chris. There's Dan in the chat. Dan, who's a fan of one of my guests tonight. Have both of Mike's books. Very nice. Thank you for that, Dan. Well, let's go ahead and get the ball rolling here. My first guest needs no introduction. He is a friend of the channel. You've seen him many times. He is a great filmmaker and just a great all-around guy. And that person is Jamie Blanks. How's it going, man?
Good to see you, Justin. How you doing, my friend?
Very good. Always a pleasure to shoot the bull with you and talk horror.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
So yeah, tonight will be very, very fun. Yes. But thank you for I know it's Monday for you. You're a whole day ahead of us.
Yeah. Greetings from the future.
So what's the stock market looking like?
Exactly. That's good to see you.
My next guest is a very talented author and critic. It's Mike Thorn. How's it going, Mike?
Great. How you doing? Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure, man. We've it's good to meet you digitally. I know we've exchanged a few tweets here and there. I feel like we've bonded over our mutual affection for Toby Hooper. So, yes. And if Jamie vouches for you, you know what I mean. You've got to be a good guy. So
yeah, he's all right.
Right back at you, man. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So how's it going, man? How's your Halloween season treating you?
So far so good. I have this annual tradition where I stubbornly commit to watching at least one horror film a day, no matter how busy I am. And this being the first year of my PhD, it's been a little difficult to make that happen, but God damn it, I'm doing it. So yeah, it's good. It's good. How about you?
So far, so good. Very busy. Very busy. I really wanted to make this October special, so I've scheduled so much stuff for the channel that I've really kind of yet to dive into my own Halloween movie kind of, thing. Not that I have like a tradition necessarily. It's just, the usual suspects every year. I mean, I've got to watch Halloween 2. I watch Halloween 2 more than I watch the original. I love the original. I think it's a masterpiece, but I find myself reaching for part 2 more often. Something about the atmosphere and just, I don't know. Yeah, so always that one. Yeah, usually Halloween 4 is a very early one for me too, in the month, and then just whatever I'm feeling. So, do you have any Halloween traditions, Jamie, when it comes to the movies you watch or anything?
I try and watch horror movies all year round. I do remember as a kid, because we don't really celebrate Halloween in Australia to the extent that it happens in the US. So I remember when I was in my teens, my friends and I would dress up and try and go trick-or-treating, and it didn't always go that well. It's become more of a thing now. Like every Halloween now, I see groups of kids. We used to actually have these huge Halloween parties when my son was younger. We had one year, 200 kids showed up. This is like the third year in a row that we've had this party, and they'd told their friends, and those friends had told other friends, and it ended up we just got besieged in a home with like 200 children. And taking them trick-or-treating around the neighborhood, we had to split up into like 5 groups. The neighbors didn't know what had hit them, so we had to stop that after a while.
How's Halloween? Mike, I know you're Canadian. Is Halloween as big a deal up there as it is down here in the States?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I just moved to the east coast of Canada, Fredericton, and we get these vibrant, beautiful fall colors. So I'm really
Mm,
feeling the atmosphere and a lot of
mm.
fog too. So, Jamie, I know you're an enthusiast of John Carpenter's The Fog.
Mm.
Often I wake up feeling like I'm in that film. So that makes me very happy. Yeah.
That is cool. Yeah, that is cool. It's not quite hit that fall weather feeling here in Kentucky yet, although it did get down to, like, it was in the 30s last night. So those leaves are going to be changing colors really quickly, and it'll start feeling and looking like fall here very shortly. That is for sure. So, Mike, you're an author. Darkest Hours, Shelter of the Damned, um, books that several people in the audience have already mentioned. Do you remember uh, how you were first introduced to the horror genre?
Yeah. I was always drawn to the dark and the macabre just from a young age for whatever reason. I had that pathological condition that probably all three of us have. I don't know
Hmm.
what that is, but
Hmm.
for me, it materialized in a lot of ways. Like as a young kid, like many kids of my generation, I got into R.L. Stein and Christopher Pike. And I think the Tim Jacobus covers of that original Goosebumps line were as instrumental as the books themselves in a way. But I feel like around 12 or 13 was when everything really started falling into place. I think that was the time I first read Pet Sematary. I was
Mm.
serving an in-school suspension in junior high, and instead of reading my school books, I was reading Stephen King's Pet Sematary. So I associated it with like transgression in some sense, um, which is, I mean, that's what horror should be, I think. And I started getting into Alice Cooper around that age and Rob Zombie, and I think it was as much about the aesthetics again as it was about the music. So yeah, those were some of my gateway drugs.
Did you find it, Mike? Was it novels or films that you kind of got into initially? I'm guessing it's probably easier to get your hand on books rather than to get R-rated films when you're that young.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did sneak some films in. There was a program called Friday Night Frightmare in Calgary, in Canada, when I was growing up, and they would play a double bill. So I remember I snuck down and watched the film of Pet Sematary quite young, the Mary Lambert film, which fucked
Mm,
me up in the
Mm,
best possible way. I mean, that's a
mm,
dark film.
yeah.
very.
So, yeah, that one and The Exorcist, seeing those
Mm.
around, 13 or whatever, it was like, whoa, it just, and weirdly enough, I can't remember how it happened, but there was a Halloween party I was at. Again, I was probably 12, 13, and we watched Bride of Chucky. So maybe an unusual one, but the irreverent energy of that movie, and the characters, I just loved Chucky's attitude, his kind of outlaw persona.
Yeah.
So that was another big one for me.
So you're
It's
into,
funny.
like, like you said, the transgression of the genre and of the music, of course. I mean, metal and horror go together like, you know, peanut butter and jelly. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Bride of Chucky, Mike. They were shooting that in Canada when I was up there doing Urban Legend. I think they were on at the same time because we weren't just fighting that production for crew members and stuff. We were actually fighting for parking in some locations with the Bride of Chucky people. So that was
No
happening
way.
around the same time. Yeah.
Did you
Wow.
get to meet any of the folks on that
No,
production?
I didn't, unfortunately. No. But Cronenberg was doing Existence at the same time, and he was at the
Mm,
same lab. So
Wow.
every time I go and see dailies, he would be there looking at the dailies of Existence. So that was pretty cool.
Wow.
that
Did
is
you
really
did you
cool.
get to meet David
Yeah, very
Cronenberg?
briefly.
Yeah.
Very briefly.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah,
Existence, that's a great film.
yeah, it is a good film. Actually,
I like that movie a lot too. That's one that kind of you would, when people talk Cronenberg, they very rarely bring up Existence.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it kind of felt like a throwback to his early stuff, which I loved. It reminded me a bit of Videodrome and stuff. So yeah, I like that film.
Mhm. I remember really liking Spider too, and that's one nobody
Mm,
ever mentions is Spider.
Yeah,
yeah, that's
great
really
film.
dark.
When did so Pet Cemetery, was that your introduction to the written word as far as the genre is concerned? And where did it go from there?
Yeah, I'd say that was my first like adult horror book. And then, for a long time, I just devoured all the Stephen King I could get my hands on. So, I've now read every one of his books, and many of them several times. And it's strange now that I've also written a lot of academic work on Stephen King. I've like managed to bring that nerdy origin into my day job, so to speak, or whatever. Yeah, and I guess another major discovery for me, or a couple major discoveries, would have been H.P. Lovecraft and Edgar Allan Poe. Kind of discovering the foundations of where King came from. And then in my early 20s, another major discovery for me was Kathy Koja, who wrote the novel The Cipher, which initiated the Del Abyss line in the early 90s. And her work just really rocked my world, and was, I think, a big part of the reason that I decided I wanted to write horror fiction myself, like in a serious way, was reading Koja. So yeah,
I felt a little cosmic horror in some of your stuff. So yeah, I can see the I can see that for Lovecraft there.
Yeah, I love that stuff. Yeah, cosmic horrors. And I like the idea of kind of mashing these things together that maybe people wouldn't ordinarily assume could be brought together, like the coming of age novel with something almost like a serial killer novel and a cosmic horror form, and just seeing what happens, what kind of weird alchemy comes about when you bring all these disparate forms together. That excites me.
When did you first start writing your own fiction?
Literally as long as I can remember. I honestly can't remember a time before I started writing. I was a very weird kid. Like, instead of going out to play football or whatever, I would write pages, and like, I wrote my first novel probably again around the age of 12 or 13, a really terrible and unreadable ripoff of Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. So I was always interested in like speculative genre stuff.
Was there a point in do you remember the point where you decided, like, this is what I want to pursue as a career?
I started writing Shelter for the Damned in my early 20s, and I didn't really know what it was. I just knew I needed to write it. It started out with a fight scene between the protagonist Mark and this other kid Clinton that kind of escalates in a really extreme image. And I guess that was my first serious attempt at a novel. I just knew I needed to write it. I didn't know what I would end up doing with it. I started submitting stories for publication around 2015. So I think I just spent a lot of time like learning, reading a lot, writing a lot. I took a directed writings course in my undergrad with a brilliant writer named Randy Schroeder. And we actually studied a lot of like screenplay theory and screenplay narratology, and that helped me kind of understand narrative structure better. So I think, I don't know, once I felt comfortable enough with my work, which was around 2015, that's when I started submitting and stuff.
I believe it was Stephen King who said you have to write, I don't remember if he said 1 million words or 1 billion words, I don't remember at this point, before you find your voice. Did it take you a long time to find your voice as an author?
Yeah, I think it did. And even with Shelter for the Damned, initially, the book was very transparently aping an American novelist who I really admire named Hubert Selby Jr., who we wouldn't normally associate with horror expressly. Like, he wrote Last Exit to Brooklyn and Requiem for a Dream, but he has this very distinct prose style that makes very little use of conventional punctuation. He doesn't really use quotation marks or paragraph breaks or signal when different characters are speaking. And initially, I wrote Shelter for the Damned in a form a lot like that. And when I took this directed writings course with Randy Schroeder, he kind of urged me to rethink that. He's like, well, why are you making this decision? And basically my answer was, I like Hubert Selby Jr., but I'm not Hubert Selby Jr. So thankfully he talked some sense into me. So I think maybe with that novel, in a way, I sort of figured out a point of view or something like a style.
Do you do like the very thorough outline so that you know every twist and turn and how the story is going to go before you start writing it? Or do What's your process like?
I wish I did that, and I know I should do that. And with my next novel, I think I will, because I'm nearing the end of the first draft of my second novel right now, and I'm like, this is going to be a fucking headache to rework, because I kind of find my way to these things. So I determine sometime late into the first draft, oh, that's what this person's internal conflict is, or that's why this plot thread connects with that plot thread. So I do a lot of surgical work in the rewriting and editing stage. And I think that surgical work has to happen. So for a lot of people, it happens most extensively in advance. For me, it happens most extensively in retrospect.
So when you start out, Mike, you've kind of got a rough roadmap of where you want to try and take the story, but you haven't figured out all the beats yet. That's still happening as you work through it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'll almost always have a sense of where it's going to end up. And at least the fates of several of the primary characters, but I also enjoy kind of letting the characters navigate me through in the early drafts, and sometimes they'll surprise you. And that's part of, for me, the pleasure in writing is allowing that to happen. So yeah, most of that surgical stuff, like I said, for me, happens in the editing process, which makes editing a lot more cumbersome. So
yeah.
Do you work on short stories concurrently with your novels, or do you tend to kind of be all in focused on one particular project at the time?
it's always a combination. Yeah, I find novels are just, I mean, they're so time consuming, and for me, they tend to take like several years. And again, that could be partially as a consequence of my approach. And I'd like to, next time I write a novel, try something a little more rigidly structured in advance. And it's okay if I kind of break that open in the writing. But yeah, just to escape from the novel in some sense, I like to have a few stories going to, and criticism as well. I like to kind of dip my toes all over the place, have a lot of outlets.
Staying busy.
And you set aside a chunk of the day, don't you, to do a bit of reading and make sure you always, is it the start of the day for you, or how does it work? Because I'm always struggling to try and find time to get stuck into a book, because once I start, I don't want to be disturbed, and I want to just have a good solid few hours at it. And yeah, I don't get as much of that time as I'd like. But do you carve out time every day to have a bit of brain space to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel you. I mean, the time just isn't, it's not really there. You have to like somehow make the time, somehow force it to exist. So for me, that's a matter of just getting up earlier than maybe I would like. But the motivation for me to get up early is that there's a book waiting for me. Wow. So I have a practice where in the morning I brew a pot of coffee. I don't look at my phone. I don't look at my emails. I just sit and read for at least an hour. And for me, that's part of writing. You have to be actively reading if you write.
Of course, yeah.
Right. There's, so I just think it's like, so that's the way I found, and doing a PhD, a big part of my job is reading. So the reading kind of takes care of itself now in that sense.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very good. It's some structure, but you kind of like to shoot from the hip a little bit while you're writing too, right?
I do. Yeah. I like to, like I said, just sort of see where it takes me. I like to approach writing with a sense of openness. So I often talk about the fact that I do not write message fiction. I'm not interested in didactic fiction or like delivering a message to the reader. I'd rather explore something, whether it be a feeling or an image or a concept, and just seeing where it takes me. And then just allowing the story to open itself up to me in that sense. Because I feel like if I go into like too rigid, I don't know, it takes some of the joy out for me. That's just kind of the way I feel.
Yeah. Have you ever, has a character ever done something that surprises you as the author while you're writing?
Yeah, Mark surprised me a lot with Shelter for the Damned. I don't know. He stayed with me for a while, and he still kind of clatters around in my brain because this kid just sort of showed up for me. Again, with a fight scene, I just wrote it as a scene. But I was just drawn to this kid. And I felt like I was just kind of discovering him through that novel, and the depths of darkness that he went to were kind of distressing for me as a writer. I was like, oh my God, am I going there? And I just thought, well, I can't avoid it now. That is the story. So for me, Shelter for the Damned was the most that way.
You've got a lot of strengths as a writer, but one of the things I think that really works, that you do so well, Mike, is that you ground your characters in a sense of reality, even when there's all these incredibly bizarre and supernatural dark things happening. At no point do we ever feel like we lose touch of that character's humanity, you know, even when the story may be about the loss of that humanity, but you always, they always ring true, those characters. And I think that's a real skill. Do you draw, what do you draw upon when you're creating characters? Is there a little bit of you that comes through in there, or people that you know, or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, and I'd be curious if this is part of your creative process too, but I feel like there has to be something personal in it to pull me through. I can't imagine writing something from a completely impersonal perspective. And maybe it's different with filmmaking or music composition. I'd be curious if it's similar for you, where I have to feel like there's a part of me in it.
I have to feel like I can at least understand the character, even if I can't necessarily relate to it. It has to be human behavior that I can understand. Otherwise, it's very hard to give an actor direction to play that character if you can't actually express that, that motivation in some kind of real world, context that makes sense, if that makes sense.
What if it's a character that is just completely just reprehensible? I remember hearing Stephen King in an interview one time say, if you write a character who's racist, they have to say racist things. That's their character. You have to be true to that character. It may be completely antithetical to everything to who you are as a human being. But if you're going to put that character in your story, you can't have, the nicest, most polite racist in the world. You got to it's got to be racist. So
yeah, I had a film with 3 of those kind of characters in there. Storm Warning, they were kind of Everett DeRoche's concoctions, but they are, based on the worst traits that a human being can possess. So, Everett, he gave those characters a lot of reality, even inside that sort of heightened story. They were all kind of believable, ugly human traits that you've seen in other people. So we tried to make them, even though they were kind of larger than life characters, tried to ground them in some sort of reality. And they have to, exactly like you said, they have to exude that behavior. If they're a racist, they've got to say racist things. It's a strange old world when you're working with characters like that. A lot of people didn't want to play those characters. I remember we've struggled really hard to find someone to play the father in that script, because there was implied incest, and all sorts of things in that story, and it just put a lot of actors off straight away. But we didn't want to sort of whitewash whatever it had done. It was like we have to stick true to the intent of that character. And fortunately, we found someone who was prepared to go to that dark place and do it.
I can understand actors because I've heard different actors say, my agent told me, don't do that role. It's going to ruin my career. I won't work for years afterwards. When it comes to writing a character like that for a novel, Mike, any fear of, well, if he writes this character so realistically, he must be like that character, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the biggest deterrent or creative block for a writer, is to think about the reader, any concept of the reader. So I think the goal is always just to focus on the work and not get in the way of the characters. I think it would be a mistake for me as a writer to get in the way of my characters, whatever their true selves are, whatever their true behaviors are. I don't think it's up to me as a writer to censor that or coach that or police that in any way, and like, I don't know, I'll stop writing dark, violent fiction as soon as the world stops being a dark, violent place, but I don't see any sign of that happening. So
right. But
you don't want to filter yourself in the creative process at all. It's like
you can't.
Yeah. But sometimes that gets out of hand. I remember, the controversy over American Psycho. Bret Easton Ellis received death threats. He wrote a book about a character, and people said, well, that character must be you because you're writing about, you're a man, he's a man.
Yeah.
You should die because of this.
Yeah. Oh, it's an incredible novel too. I think and it's really funny as well, if you can push past all the excess. And that's a really interesting case. And Bret Easton Ellis often comes to mind to me just as a writer dealing with that particular set of issues, because he does kind of tangle up the personal, the autobiographical with the fictional in, and I think deliberately complicated ways. So I think he's being antagonistic. You know, like the book Lunar Park, the protagonist is a character named Bret Easton Ellis.
Right.
But this Bret Easton Ellis happens to be married to a woman and is a professor. And so I think he likes playing with that.
He does. He likes, yeah, he does. He does.
Yeah.
Jamie, do you have anything to ask Mike? I've got to think about this next question if I want to throw it.
No,
out
it's
there.
actually it's funny we talked about Bret Easton Ellis for a bit, and it was incredibly controversial, that novel, when it came out, and almost to the point we think, how can they actually film this novel, but yet they found a way to do it. What did you think of the screen adaptation of the novel?
I think it's like as faithful of an adaptation as you can make as a studio film of that novel, because the novel's so locked into this like almost alien subjectivity. Like you get Patrick Bateman's sprawling essays on different discographies, and you never know what's real and what isn't. And somehow the movie manages to retain that, and the humor too, I think. And she's such a good film. What do you think of Mary Harron's work? Are you guys?
Mary Harron, just yeah, she did such a great job. I mean, she took because there's no plot in American Psycho. There's no plot at all, and she created a plot out of nothing, a compelling plot. And I'm with you. I mean, there's chapters in that book that are just absolutely shocking. It seems like it would be such a difficult book to turn to the screen. But she does Mary Harron and Guinevere Turner, who co-wrote it, they did such a phenomenal job with that. It's
very difficult to take a novel with a lot of interior dialogue and to make that work in a feature context. I mean, even Mike, you and I, when we're looking at Shelter, turning that into a treatment, there's a whole lot of stuff in that novel that happens inside the character's head. So we had to find other ways of representing those ideas in our screen treatment, and that was just a really interesting exercise to go through, wasn't it, man? Just figure out, how do we do this on camera? We can't put a book through a projector, so we've got to figure out a way to translate those ideas, and that was a really interesting process going through and doing that with you, actually.
It was, yeah, and I think doing it with you made it a lot less daunting than it might have been had I done it in a vacuum, because you have such acute and distinct visual sense, and you also have a strong sense of how to chart character arcs in narrative terms, like in films. So yeah, it was fun though too. It was a fun challenge.
It was really enjoyable, and I just remember, just being able to bounce ideas back and forth so easily until we finally arrived at a place where we could figure out, okay, this is what we need to. This is where the core of the story. This is how we get into this character, and this is how we represent what the shack can be for him. It was a lot of interesting little things we had to figure out visually to make those story beats work, and I really enjoyed that process a lot, working with you on that.
I did too. Yeah, and I think it's actually to me, it actually kind of focuses and distills the novel. Like it feels to me, it kind of clarifies it. So that's the best you can hope for in terms of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So with your first book of published short stories, Mike, how did that come into being? Were these were things that you get accumulated over a period of time, these short stories, and how did the first collection come into being?
Yeah, I found an opening for unsolicited submissions with a small Canadian press. I had never published a book before, but I thought, I have a lot of stories. It came across, I followed a page called Dark Markets, which is a very useful, if anyone out there is interested in submitting, I don't know if Dark Markets still exists, but really useful resource. And I assembled the manuscript out of all the stories I had at the time. The version that was accepted is actually quite a bit different than the version that was ultimately published. There were a couple stories that the editor, I think quite rightly, said, I don't want to include that story. And now I'm thankful for that. And then leading up to the release, the editor said, if you write new fiction leading up to the release that you'd like to work into the book, we can make that happen. So it was kind of assembling it after it was accepted in some way. So, and it ended up being 16 stories. And the new edition that was published with Journal Stone, I just thought it would be interesting to include my essays on horror cinema too, because I think that book is just like steeped in my love and obsession with horror. And I started actually publishing film criticism around the same time I started publishing fiction too. It all kind of started. So I think they capture a moment in time in a way.
And how did you end up with Journal Stone? Because you were with a different publisher, and then the novel was the first thing to come out through Journal Stone. Was that right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then after my contract ended with the previous publisher for Darkest Hours, I ended up talking to an old friend who has since become a literary agent. Her name's Stacey Conla. She's incredible with the Rights Factory. And we got to talking, and she said, I'd like to represent you. And we were batting ideas around, and she thought it might be a good idea to submit to Journal Stone again. And we ended up getting the 2-book deal for Darkest Hours and Peel Back and See. So 2021 has turned out to be the most bonkers years of my life. 3 books in a year and starting my PhD. It's been wild, but in a good way.
That's incredible. Yeah. I know you guys mentioned Shannon in the chat said you guys need to collaborate, but it sounds like it's already happening. Where's the Darkest Hours project or adaptation? Where's that stand at the moment?
Well, we've got an adaptation of Shelter for the Damned that we've taken around I'm sorry. Places. Yeah, and then and Mike and I currently working on another project together, which maybe you should talk about what we're working on, Mike. Let him know.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, again, just think about this year. It's wild how much you and I, Jamie, have like done together. So I was thinking it hasn't even been a year, and we've done 2 full treatments, started developing another one. We've just I don't know, there's been so much, just it's that
very good year. Yeah.
It's unreal. Yeah. I've never had that kind of immediate, electric creative energy with someone. It's so cool.
No, it's lovely when you find those connections. It doesn't happen all that often, and it's wonderful when you do. It's just when the creative symbiosis.
Exactly. Yeah. So the thing we're working on now is called Havoc. It's based on the first short story in Peel Back and See. I'm actually developing it as part of a screenwriting seminar I'm taking right now, which is a very small group. It's only 2 other students and an instructor. And I actually just submitted my first outline, which is 5 pages. Got everyone's feedback, and I'm rethinking in some ways the shape of it, because the story is quite short, and the story is largely about sort of a state of mind. It's very conceptual. It's kind of abstract too. So just finding the plot and the character arcs, and the film version will bring in, I think, another primary character. But yeah, so Havoc is the one right now. But as Jamie said, Shelter's done. We've worked on other things together in the past. So yeah, I think.
We just get warmed up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Very, very cool. You mentioned earlier the dark part of us that draws us to horror. And, I've often wondered that, and I've asked that of different people, what drew you to the genre? What was it about it? And I mean, I had a normal childhood, wasn't abused, but when I found myself standing in front of the horror section in the video store at 6, 7, 8 years old, however old I was, I mean, it was like 2001, seeing the thing. I mean, I was in awe, and I've still in awe to this day. So I mean, that's what I can't describe what drew me to it, because like I said, I've had a very normal, kind of life. What if you wanted to go deeper into it? I mean, what do you think it is about the genre that drew you into it, or draws so many people into it, Mike?
I think that maybe by virtue of its unique excesses, horror can get at really difficult and uncomfortable stuff more directly than any other genre, because it's kind of armed with its excesses in a way. But when you look at what horror is doing, a lot of time, it's looking at some of the most complex and fundamental psychological and emotional experiences that people can have. And yeah, I don't know. It's similar to you. The way I often phrase it, I don't know how else to put it, but horror just felt like home. I don't know. Which is maybe a weird thing to say, but it's like, yeah.
It helps you process things in the real world. I think it's kind of, it's a healthy genre. Horror and science fiction. I mean, Rod Serling used science fiction as a way of dealing with topics that you couldn't actually discuss on television at the time, right? He used to explore racism and all sorts of things. And I think horror's always allowed people to do that. It's kind of just re-examine life through a different lens. Sometimes a very pessimistic lens. But I think we all kind of love, on some level, to be scared. You know, there's a reason we go on roller coaster rides and all those other cliches, but it's true. You know, it's like there's something about us that enjoys being scared. I remember the first time I saw the original Halloween, I was terrified, but still able to appreciate the fact that that was an exciting emotion to experience and something that I was never in any real world danger, but it was kind of a way of experiencing that thrill through the movie or through the book or something. And I think that's probably what it is ultimately that draws us all to it. We like being scared.
I think there was something taboo about it too, maybe, because I remember being somewhere and seeing a Fangoria magazine as a kid, and I grabbed it off the stand, but I remember looking through it and looking around to make sure like no one was watching. And like I just knew that what I was looking at was taboo at such an early age. Like I didn't want people to see, or I just felt like, I don't know, paranoid about looking at it. I put that down and picked up the Hustler and just walked straight to the counter and bought it. So, but I was like 7. The guy was like, "Sure, kid."
Well, I guess comic books were in the 50s, right, Justin, with like Tales from the Crypt and stuff. That was the kind of taboo stuff for the kids to get into back then. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I always remember a quote from Wes Craven. He said that horror movies are boot camps for the psyche, and that perfectly summarizes, I think, the genre. And you can have that fear while in the safety of your home or in the safety of a movie theater surrounded by other people who are sharing your nervous breakdown, you know? So there's something very communal and familial about horror too. Like, you know, if you're in a room with someone else who loves horror, you can tell, you can feel there's like a connection or something. There's just some energy or something coming off. You know it. It's like if you've ever been to a horror convention, you see people from all walks of life, every different creeds and colors, and gnarly looking people, clean cut looking people, young and old. And it's just, it doesn't matter what you look like or how much money you have in your pocket or what your orientation is. If you love the genre, you're cool. You're one of us. You know what I mean? Like I've been to, I can't tell you how many horror conventions. I've never even heard anyone like raise their voice at another person in anger there. So it's I don't know. They're
a pretty well-adjusted bunch generally, the horror fans.
You know, there's a few that are out there.
Always.
But there's a few out there. But it's the perception, of course, is you're a Satanist and you're you probably kill small animals and you sacrifice them to your dark lord and you do all sorts of horrible things behind closed doors, and that's just not the.
I heard Wes Craven say that so many times throughout his career that people would meet him and expect him to be some raving psychotic who's made Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left, and they're surprised to find this English teacher.
Exactly. Yeah. You know,
I'm wondering, you guys, how you feel. What out of the two mediums, when you've got cinema and you've got literature, what's your favorite? What's the best medium, do you think, for telling a scary story? Is it books or is it films?
Ooh, it's a tough question. Yeah,
because there's most of the time the books are superior, but there will be occasionally a film come along. I think like Jaws, where the film's way better than the actual novel. Based on, right? It's very rare, but they both have their strengths. But I've always found books somehow get their hooks into me in a much more fundamental way than any film can. You know, I think
you're directing the movie in your mind. You're reading the book and you're casting it with your friends and yourself and everyone you know.
You have the geography of the house in your head. You've imagined something, and that's why I always found that books are such a powerful medium, and it's always been such a challenge to adapt a book really well for film.
Yeah.
But,
And you know, they're two very different mediums, because one is very active and one is kind of passive. When you're watching a movie, you just let it wash over you. When you're reading a book, things are going on up here. So I mean, you can create whatever's lurking in the shadows can be your worst fear. You can create that in your head. It's not just going to be some dude in a mask. And maybe that is your worst fear. I don't know, but you know,
yeah, I think that's part of it.
Yeah. So I mean, creating your own nightmare. There's something about that, definitely.
I'm curious, Jamie. I don't know how much we've talked about like the origins of your interest in horror fiction too. Like, I know you were a huge fan of horror cinema from a young age. Were you reading a lot of the fiction too? Like which which authors were you reading?
I mostly was a Stephen King guy growing up. I just tried to devour everything that he had, and I'd read a bunch of other stuff. I read The Exorcist, and I read all sorts of books that were available back then. I used to collect like trashy paperbacks. The 80s were a great time to buy all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
So I've always had collections of these things, and I just found myself absorbed by both things. I saw many films as I could, and I tried to read as many books as I could, and I read horror comics and all that stuff. I was right into all those things, but I always found the books were somehow like I always found a Stephen King novel was way more effective than any film version that they would make of it, because somehow it was just way more potent. And I think it's exactly what Justin says. You imagine your own movie and your own worst fears that way. And I think a good author can kind of plant those seeds and let you kind of use your own imagination against you.
Yeah, definitely.
Totally. Yeah, King's an interesting case. Like, I actually don't think I can think of a single adaptation that I would say works quote unquote better than the book. I guess it's hard because they're different mediums, but for me, the book always seems to stick with me in a more profound way. I don't know. Even the ones I love, like The Dead Zone or
and Shawshank's a very good adaptation of the book. Of course. Very faithful,
yeah, for sure.
There are instances where the film can builds upon that story and then adds things to it to make it more cinematic, or to just maybe bridge some gaps that were in the original material. It takes I think special filmmakers to do that. Frank Darabont, for instance, or David Cronenberg, or et cetera. So
Brian De Palma,
of course. There's been just think about all the Stephen King adaptations and all the incredible filmmakers who've made those into outstanding films. It's just a who's who. I mean, up and down.
Totally. Kubrick, it's just
of course.
everybody. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I mean, he's Stephen King is still going strong. He's I don't know how old he is, but he's got to be up there, and he's still, I think he
still cranks them out, man.
Still cranks them out. Yeah, I think he's got his routine. He gets up in the morning and he writes, and then he goes for a walk. So.
Is that how you operate too, Mike? Do you have some sort of writing routine every day? Or I guess life's a bit different now that you're doing your PhD, but how did it work for you? Did you have some sort of ritual that you adhere to in terms of writing?
I always yearn to have more of a ritual. Right now, especially as I'm kind of orienting myself in the PhD, it's just kind of chaos. So I'll wake up at 6, do my hour of reading, and then usually I just work, excluding meal breaks, until like 9-10 p.m. And often that's coursework or but a little bit of writing, not as much as I'd like these days. But in the past, like when I'm really, for the book I'm working on now, the second novel called Cloven Hoof, when I first started writing that novel, I would get up I think I was waking up at 5 in the morning, and I would write until 7 for 2 hours before I'd get ready for work. And something about like that kind of loopy, hazy early morning energy was crazy useful for me creatively.
Right.
Your head's not full of all the stress that you collect throughout the day. I'd be curious to hear too, like with your composition, if you're more of a morning guy or a late night guy, or if there's a specific...
with music, it's always a late night thing for me.
Cool.
Generally, like I don't always have that luxury. Sometimes I have to work during the day to stay on a schedule or something. But I'm at my most creative in the evenings. I've never really been a huge morning person. That's why shooting movies is always tough for me, getting up early every day.
Yeah.
I don't drink coffee either, so that doesn't help. But yeah, no, I've always been more of a night owl. So I was in my element when we'd be on night shoots, and we'd be shooting into the wee hours of the morning. I'm very, very happy doing that. But yeah, I've never really been much of a morning guy.
Yeah, same. No mornings for me. I don't remember who the screenwriter was, but they said that their day started in the morning, bright and early. As soon as they got out of bed, they started writing, and like the first 3 pages would be just completely horrible, but then something would click at that point, and then you're off and running. He also said he did a lot of cocaine too, so that helped. So
Morning cocaine.
I think this guy just did cocaine, period. It was just a lot of blow, but he did mention how the drugs did help him until they stopped helping him, and then he just had a drug problem. But who was this? I can't remember who this was. He said he was like, at one point I was writing the best stuff I'd ever written, and then I couldn't write anymore because I was just so messed up. And then I was like, holy crap, I'm addicted to drugs. Yeah. So
it's a familiar story.
Yeah. Who was that? Gosh, it'll come to me after we end the stream, I'm sure. But I thought it was a really interesting story, especially about the getting up in the morning and how the first few pages would just be total garbage, but then something would click. And since it was so early and the mind was just kind of fresh, so he wrote some of the best stuff he'd ever written.
Believe me, I take no pleasure in admitting that there is something to that, because I'm like you guys. I am not a morning person by nature, but I have to admit there was something to it. I hate admitting it, but I don't know. It's just something about it when you're emerging from sleep. And again, the fact that you haven't yet filled your head with all of the clutter. Yeah. I don't know.
I can see that.
Yeah. But it's probably different for everybody. Like it's interesting to hear that late at night. And actually, I feel like that makes sense for the vibe and the atmosphere of your music, that it would come out better at night. It has a sort of often a kind of driving at night atmosphere to it. Yeah.
I like to be able to go to bed knowing I've done something that's good, and then usually in the morning I'll come back and listen to what I've done the night before and make a few changes. But the bulk of my writing I do at nighttime. Yeah.
I knew you were going to say night. I was like, that music doesn't come from the day. Definitely not the morning. You don't make that music in the morning.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
That's nighttime. Maybe you got a glass of scotch on the side. That's that music right there.
Totally. Yeah.
You said who are you reading right now, Mike?
What am I reading right now? I'm reading a book on screenwriting. I've got it right here called Inside Story by Dara Marks, which is kind of interesting. I just finished reading, oh God, what was the name of it? I'm blanking. I'm going to be starting a Samuel Beckett novel called The Unnameable for a course I'm taking. Gosh, yeah, it's mostly school readings right now. I'm listening to, we talked about Bret Easton Ellis earlier. He did a serial audio novel that he just finished called The Shards. Where he's kind of playing with the idea of what a novel is. Again, he's approaching it as nominally autobiography, but it's this like really lurid serial killer story. So I'm like, I don't know how true this is, but he's drawing on like elements of his biography that he's talked about elsewhere on his podcast. So that's actually really incredible so far. Yeah, I've got, and I'm reading Schopenhauer's The World as Will and Representation, Volume 1. So getting my pessimistic philosophy in. That's actually my leisure reading right now for some reason. So
okay.
Sounds really like reading.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds very leisurely.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know where I'm at right now. I'm like, I don't know. That's my comfort reading right now. So
the Bret Easton Ellis thing sounds really interesting. I'm going to have to look into that one.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's almost like some of the things he's doing remind me a little bit almost of that Orson Welles War of the Worlds, because there is, this sense of messing with reality. And he also is doing things where he's playing with like the perspective of the narrator. He's claiming that he's revising things as he goes along, and that people have emailed him with notes about events that he's detailed inaccurately. So it's really, I feel like you could only do it in the podcast form. So I'm like, that's causing me to rethink what like a novel can be.
Cool.
Yeah,
that is very cool.
So we've got another book coming up soon, Mike. It's coming out is it this month? Peel Back and See.
Yes, I do have copies right here.
Yeah.
Peel Back and See, my second short story collection. It comes out October 29th. So I'm nervously excited for that. I've talked a lot about the fact that I think this is like my most personal book in many ways. I'm just curious to see how readers feel about it. I think it's very different from Darkest Hours in some ways, but hopefully still retains enough of my point of view. And the book is actually dedicated to Jamie Blanks because I think, I something.
Man.
No, it's
so kind of you.
I couldn't think of anyone else like who would make more sense to dedicate the book to. In 2018 to 2021 were just enormously trying years for me in a number of ways. And meeting you when I did and having that kind of creative synergy, it was really like resuscitating for me. So it's like, I wanted to.
It was amazing for me too. It was just such a good creative connection that we established, and just that simpatico. It was just wonderful.
Hell yeah.
When did the process of writing Peel Back and See begin in terms of where you were with Shelter? Was this something that was kind of happening around the development of that novel, or was this something that happened afterwards, or were they spread out over a period of years, the stories? Tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, so the majority of the stories in the collection I wrote between 2018 and 2021. There are a couple exceptions. One of the stories is an outlier that was published in 2016. It's a very short story called Entropy Major. But actually, several of the stories I wrote quite close, again, to the publication. The final story in the collection called Fade to White, I wrote like very recently, and I knew the book needed it as a closer. There's a kind of trilogy of stories that to me summarize what the book is about, which is largely depression. So kind of cutting through some of the armature that I was talking about of excess in the genre and just getting to the personal shit in a way that I feel like I hadn't in the past. So that's Havoc, Deprimer, and Fade to White. To me, I was going to places I feel like I hadn't gone as a writer before. So 2018 all the way up to, just a few months ago. So
yeah, it's wild.
To anybody out there who may be interested in picking up some of your work, Mike, where can we find your work?
They're available directly through the publisher, Journal Stone, or the usual places like Barnes and Noble, Amazon. Canadian folks can get Shelter for the Damned and Darkest Hours through Chapters Indigo. I think Peel Back and See will be available through them soon too. So they're around.
Okay, very cool. Let's see. We've got a question here from Sinister Antics. Outside of Stephen King, can Mike and Jamie name their 3 favorite horror writers?
Who's going first? Jamie, do you want to go first?
Well, I'm a big fan of Lovecraft. I'm reading a lot of Michael McDowell at the moment, and I'm really enjoying his stuff. He's a terrific writer.
Hell yeah.
And I've got to go with Clive Barker, I guess. I'm a big fan of Clive. I've met Clive before. He's a fantastic human being and just such a multi-talented man. And I've always been a huge fan of Mr. Barker's.
I love all 3 of those. Yeah, those are all. I mean, it's so hard. 3 is like, I guess I would have to go with, Edgar Allan Poe. I think I have to include Lovecraft too. I don't know how I can work around that. So Poe, Lovecraft, and I mentioned earlier Kathy Koja for a more contemporary example. She's my favorite living writer in the genre. But right away I have like 10 other names that are fighting to get out of my head. That's such a hard question, but yeah.
Well, I also want to put Mike Thorn on my list as well.
What do you think it is about Lovecraft's work that, he's always been popular among horror fans? You've always seen, going back to the video store days, H.P. Lovecraft's this, H.P. Lovecraft's that. But it seems like here within the past few years, he's really kind of broken out into the mainstream. You're seeing a lot of H.P. Lovecraft stuff these days.
I've got a musical instrument library on my computer that just came out a couple of weeks ago, which is sound library dedicated to H.P. Lovecraft sort of musical sound. So, that's really wild. I mean, he has kind of broken mainstream. I've been reading the autobiographies on no, the biographies on Lovecraft by Joshi. Those two, I Am Providence, and it's just he lived a really tragic life. I mean, you would not have wanted to swap places with H.P. Lovecraft. It was not a happy existence that he lived, but and so sad that he died, never knowing the extent to which his work was going to be meaningful to other people. Right. He wasn't the most pleasant man. He had a lot of undesirable characteristics. He was a shocking racist and everything else, but his work's really kind of pivotal. I mean, he's kind of invented that whole as a subgenre unto himself, and it's I recognize a lot of those qualities in Mike's writing too, that cosmic horror stuff, which is something I really responded to in Mike's work. Just that sense of there are forces way beyond our control, that we are just a tiny speck in the scheme of the universe, and just through sheer indifference, these forces can wipe us out, not because they got anything against us, we just don't matter in the scheme of the world. And I think that's one of the great terrors of Lovecraft, is just that cosmic indifference to our existence. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true.
Very well said. Yeah. I think maybe it also comes from just like the state of anxiety in our material reality, like with things like the pandemic that we're living through and the state of like ecological catastrophe. I think maybe people are relating now more than ever to this idea, oh, maybe we're not that special. Like maybe we are fallible. Maybe there are forces much bigger than humankind. Maybe this idea, like these humanist ideas, aren't getting us as far as we thought they would, which is scary.
It's amazing to get Lovecraft. He had exposure to the telescopes in the outer space, and instead of looking on and seeing wonder and awe, he saw bleak, abject terror.
Yeah, I know.
Because there's a lot of space
conveying that.
There's a lot of space out there for stuff to come and crush us. Yeah. So yeah. We've got a good question here from Carlos, and which was going to lead me into something I was going to speak to you about momentarily here, Mike. Which filmmakers, this is for Jamie specifically, but I'm going to bring you into it too, Mike. Which filmmakers do you always go back to for inspiration? Mike, you too. You are a great film buff.
Oh, it's the usual suspects for me. It's John Carpenter and Sam Raimi. I love Catherine Bigelow, George Romero, Wes Craven. Dario Argento. I go back to all of those filmmakers that I fell in love with in my teens, because I still love their work, and I still see so much you can learn from those filmmakers. And I find I revisit my favorite films frequently, and that's why I love to have them on disc around me, because I never want to be more than an arm's grab away from a film that I want to see. So I just love all those guys. Yeah.
And Mike, I know you're a big fan of Tobe Hooper, as I am, and not just the Chainsaw and Funhouse and the usual suspects when you talk about Hooper, but movies like The Mangler, movies like I'm Dangerous Tonight. So what is it about Hooper's work, even in some of his lesser movies or some of the lesser known ones, that just a Tobe Hooper movie is very identifiable, at least I think to me, as a Tobe Hooper movie?
Totally. Yeah, it's the point of view. And I think there's a kind of radical renegade quality to a lot of Tobe Hooper's work. Mm-hmm. It always feels really socially transgressive, and like he's grappling with very difficult, raw issues in a way that I mean, many of his contemporaries were too. I think this would also apply to like Wes Craven, George Romero, John Carpenter, just this impossibly giant group of filmmakers that emerged at the same time. And the Italian horror cinema of that era as well. Like Jamie brought up Argento. Justin, shout out to your Fulci shirt, Fulci, Sergio Martino, and I also, I'm a big fan of, in terms of contemporary people, Kiyoshi Kurosawa and Rob Zombie are big people for me. And my favorite era of horror is actually, for horror cinema, is probably the 1930s, like Todd Browning, James Whale, Karl Freund, all of that stuff. I just really, I don't know, they're kind of the cornerstones for me. And Jamie Blanks, of course. I actually just rewatched Urban Legend today.
Oh, really?
God, it's good. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, if you liked Urban Legend, check out Urban Legend 3 Bloody Mary. Blows it out of the water. Okay, it's a brilliant film. We do have a guest here who is in the green room at the moment, also an author and a huge fan of Urban Legend 3 Bloody Mary, maybe the biggest fan of Urban Legend 3. Peter Brackey's here. What's up, man?
Hey,
Peter. How's it going?
Hey, brother. Good to see you, man.
Yeah. So Justin invited me to crash a little party. I'm so sorry.
Nice.
I apologize.
It's now it's a party. Now it's the kind of party where you just rip your clothes off, you throw the TV out the window, and that's that kind of party now with Peter here.
What's going on, everybody? How's it going?
How are you, man?
Pretty good. I spent a long day in the theater today watching No Time to Die. So
I'm jealous. I want to see
plus 35 minutes of trailers. Not kidding. 35 minutes of solid trailers. About 9 trailers. So I was like, really? I'm pretty tired.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, I don't know if you've ever been introduced to Peter, Mike, Peter, Mike.
Yeah, great to meet you. Virtually.
You too. I'm very familiar with your work and huge admirer of you. Yeah, you're doing amazing stuff, man. So yeah, no, seriously, like important work in genre of film history.
Wow.
Yeah, so
thank you.
Honor to meet you, man.
Meet you. Great to meet you, man. So I'm sorry. How's your maiden voyage with Piswell gone? Right.
So far, so good. We're having a lot of fun. Yeah, we're asking each other the hard questions, like which Tobe Hooper films are most underrated, and that's.
I heard a little bit of it. Yeah. When I think of Tobe Hooper, I always think of just that there's always some sort of group of people who are disenfranchised and being replaced by modernization technology. I think of like the Cannibal Family of Texas Chainsaw, the Carnival Barker of the Funhouse, even Salem's Lot. There's a little bit of that idea. So that's kind of like the hallmark to me of a Tobe Hooper film, right? This idea of, I guess, working class folks who are being left behind in some way. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but
no, that's a good summation. I mean, definitely.
Yeah,
that's spot on.
Really apt. Yeah, and The Mangler too has kind of a working class commentary, like pretty radically political movie, actually.
Yeah, well, Texas Chainsaw 2, of course.
Hell yeah.
I've never seen Spontaneous Combustion. Sorry, that's the one I've a couple of.
That one is you can if you're a big Hooper fan, watch it, because I think you can see in the opening where he wanted it to go, and then there were just issues. That movie was just a nightmare for him behind the scenes. So
we had Brad Dourif on the set on the Urban Legend sequence in the gas station, and he would get drenched in water, then he'd go and stand by the gas heaters to get warm, and all the steam started coming off his clothes. I went up to him and said, "Man, you remind me of your character in Spontaneous Combustion." And he said to me, "You watched that piece of shit and you gave me a job or something."
I love that movie. I love Spontaneous.
No, I think it's really fun too. It's a funny thing for him to say.
That's hilarious.
that is funny. Yeah, that is funny. I'm really happy that I'm Dangerous Tonight is getting a Blu-ray here very soon, because I've always loved that movie. So I'm glad that's finally coming out. We've got a great question here from Shannon in the chat. Can you ask both Jamie and Mike, and I'm going to bring Peter into it too, what's a new horror movie that you've liked?
There's one. It didn't get a lot of attention. It's called Bad Hair. Have you guys heard of this?
No.
Yeah, it's about a young. It's kind of a mix of candy. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like in a fun kind of 90s parody. It takes place in the 90s, and she works for like a music video company. And it's initially about a very authentic Black, like a BET type of, and then they started to become more commercial. So all the girls had to start getting, hair that's more white, more acceptable to the mainstream, and the hair takes on a life of their own and kind of turns into a monster. So it's a very kind of a fun mix of social commentary and parody and horror. It's So yeah, it's called Bad Hair. So check it out. So
I just looked it up here. It does sound pretty interesting.
yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Like it has a good amount of commentary without hitting you over the head with it, and still has some fun horror moments. And because I don't know about you guys, but I mean, all the horror movies of the '70s that we love are all political in some way. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Craven, Romero, Hooper. There's always some sort of political subtext. You know.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally.
Anyway.
What about you, Mike? I'm just racking my brain to trying to think of one that
Doesn't it suck that we've got to be like, oh God,
It is hard. That's
a recent one.
Yeah.
Oh geez.
Yeah, I mean, there's some. I mean, I loved the new Shyamalan movie, Old.
I still haven't seen that.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I just love Shyamalan in general. I think he's one of the few like major working studio auteurs whose point of view is so distinct and is still so. He's managed to hold on to that, and he's making big personal movies, so that's cool. I liked James Wan's new movie Malignant. I had a lot of fun with that. There's a movie called Kriya that apparently is just shown on Shudder. I think it's a Hindu film that I saw last year through Fantasia. It's pretty. It's got a lot of interesting ideas in it. I think it's worth a look too.
Yeah, something will come to me eventually. I can't think of one off the top of my head right now.
I'm having to go through what have I reviewed recently, and it's all like 81, 75.
Yeah.
It's like I only talk about the old stuff. I did think the new Candyman movie was okay. I didn't love it,
I still
but
haven't seen that one, so
Yeah.
I didn't hate it. I thought it was just fine.
I just thought of one. I'm sorry that Jamie and I both shared an admiration for. We talked about a lot. Empty Man.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Oh yes, yes.
Thank you. Yeah. That was the last one that really blew me away. Empty Man. Thank you.
That was
Yeah,
really good.
Empty Man was great. It was great. The Dark and the Wicked was my favorite movie of last year. I love that.
I'm gonna watch that. That's on Shudder, I think, right?
Yes, it is.
I'm gonna watch that. I saw your review about that, Justin. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, I really love Dark and the Wicked. The Lodge, which came out last year, that was a really good one.
I like that one too. With the two kids, right? That was like the one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was good.
Mm-hmm. Oh goodness, I'm looking through.
It is hard.
Like, yeah. And like even those three are three that I really liked from last year. But when you ask me, it's like I'm kind of like it takes a second for the noggin to kick in, which is kind of like
Yeah, it's. I don't know about you guys, but everything now, maybe because things aren't released traditionally anymore. Like when you were a kid, you waited for the release date and you built up to it. Now it's just like there's just a morass of content.
Yeah.
So I can't differentiate anymore when it came out, or it just like appears suddenly. I'm in Netflix or something. Oh, there's this thing. I don't know when it actually came out.
I mean, I think that's an issue with things going straight to streaming, and that maybe that's something that we can talk about. Is you're just there's so much. I hate when people call like what somebody like me does on YouTube. They call it content. You're a content creator. I think of it a little differently. It's not just content, but when you look at the deluge of stuff that goes straight to streaming, if you look at, you could literally flip through horror movies on Netflix for hours. There's that much stuff there. That's content. There's so much of it. There's no way you can find one thing because there's just too much. And I think a lot of good movies are being lost because of that. One in particular, everybody knows who Mike Flanagan is now. Mike Flanagan's first movie, Absentia, that happened to. And I discovered it just blindly. And a great freaking, it's my favorite Mike Flanagan movie. So good but completely swallowed up in this, the Netflix horror. Yeah, exactly.
So much stuff to wade through. It's true. I remember in the old days renting a video, you kind of felt like even if you weren't enjoying the movie so much, you felt compelled to at least watch it all the way through because you'd rented it. But now everything's like disposable, and it's like I don't like it 5 seconds, I'm to the next thing, and so it's just a little bit of a different relationship we have with media, I think, these days.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think it's more damaging now. Well, but too, before, there was release schedules and you couldn't see, you had to wait for it, and there's a release date. And the other thing that's different now is Netflix doesn't advertise. So you don't wait weeks and see trailers like the Midnight Mass. It just, all of a sudden, there's a new Mike Flanagan, and then 2 days later, the whole series is on streaming, and then 2 days later, people have moved on to something else. So I remember, as a kid, at first you'd see an article in Monster Invasion Fangoria about a new Friday the 13th, and then you had months to wait, and you'd follow the trailer, billboards, TV advertisements, or even, I remember when Halloween premiered on NBC in 1981, there's all this build-up because Halloween 2 was coming out, and you saw that, like, there's none of that, so it just appeared.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's a totally different speed that the media just gets through the system, and you don't have that chance to build some sort of anticipation or anything like that. It's true.
I don't know, long term, it's, again, I think you're right, some things are getting lost. It's just I don't know, maybe kids can process. I can't process it all. Like, it just blurs into abstraction for me.
Yeah. Well, and I think we're looking at a time where, if physical media ever does really die and everything is just streaming, there's so many movies, good horror movies that will be lost. And I mean, literally lost. Movies that didn't make the jump from VHS to another medium, physical medium. Those movies are just going to be lost unless, you've got a VCR and the tape's not, the tape still works after 40 years. But I don't know. It's,
they said,
has anyone seen Midnight Mass yet? I haven't actually had a chance to check that out. Is it good? No?
I have not, no.
Okay, it's on my list of things to watch.
Yeah.
I was just thinking with the problems we're talking about with streaming, I think another big part of it when people rely solely on these streaming platforms is a lot of history is lost too. Like even like awareness of international cinema. Like if someone uses Netflix as their only platform for viewing cinema, they're probably not seeing a lot released before 95, maybe even 99. Not a lot released outside of, like, I don't know, Euro Western cinema or even just American cinema. And I think that's a problem too,
Yeah. One of the better movies that I saw recently that came out within the past couple of years, I was going to bring it up. It's not a horror movie, but it's a Takashi Miike film called First Love. And it's one of those, it's on streaming, but I mean, you've got to, unless you're specifically looking for Takashi Miike, it's not going to pop up. You're not going to find it, what I mean? So you're not going to just know that it's there. And a great movie, I thought. Really, really great movie.
I love him, but I haven't seen that one. He's amazing. Oh
yeah, extremely, yeah. But it's good. It's very good. It's definitely worth watching. We were talking about movies don't have hype around them anymore. There's no build up. Then there's Halloween Kills, which had over a year of build up and extreme hype, and we've not had a horror movie that has elicited such strong reactions in people as this one has. And I think it's great because it's got, everybody's talking about it. It's making a huge amount of money at the box office. But it's really, it's divided fans and created this, mostly from what I've seen, healthy debate and discussion. I'm sure there's some, toxic stuff going out there. I've actually commented twice on Twitter about two different, it was the casting of the transgender person to play Pinhead in the new Hellraiser. Like all I saw was people going, well, it makes sense because if you've read the blah, blah, blah. And somebody commented like, oh, all I'm hearing is, and I'm like, I've only heard positive things. And somebody said, well, you follow the right people. And I posted about the Halloween Kills. Like, I'm hearing everybody seems to be this, it's civil. And again, somebody was like, well, dude, you're just following the right people. And I'm like, well, why are you following the wrong people then? Yeah. So, I think it's great for the genre, and I think it's great for fans to have a movie like that elicits that kind of emotion and passion from people and really get us talking again, because there's not been a movie. Yeah, there's not been a horror movie that's really done that in a while, it seems like.
No, and it's good for the genre if we have some hit movies come along. I mean, it really helps enormously. That's why I got my fingers crossed. Scream's going to do really well next year. it can only help matters if we have a few films that are hits, that are good films, and inspire them to keep making more of them. You know, that's the whole trick.
Do you guys think though that the only films people are talking about are sequels to movies that originally we had that connection with?
See, I was going to bring that up. I
The
would
movie
love,
there,
yeah, I would love to see some more original horror stuff. You know, outside of A24. You know, I love A24, but they seem like they're the only people making original horror stuff. I'd love to see some new daring voices come out and a new who's the next Jason and Freddy, instead of us just regurgitating Jason and Freddy over and over
The
again.
problem is you can't do that now because of streaming and there's no differentiation. You can't make that kind of impact anymore.
Yeah.
I wonder what's going to happen to the spec script market too now that Victor Miller's won his lawsuit. You know,
there won't be one.
Original ideas are usually through the spec script market, and it's going to be a completely different attitude a lot of companies have with that kind of material. I imagine now they're going to have a completely different set of contracts, and how they will even how you even see a spec script get made in this climate. Who knows? But it's I think it's a good thing for writers that he was victorious in this lawsuit, but it will have other flow-on effects that we maybe don't anticipate straight away. You know?
Because it doesn't seem like there's no shared consciousness anymore. Like everything's so fragmented. You know, there's so much content. Like, and no one watches things at the same time anymore. Like, I don't know. Is there it's amazing to me. Like, stuff will come out. It's like a big deal, and then literally in 2 days, people have moved.
It's gone.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I mean,
you don't have that shared communal experience with things.
Yeah.
Even something like that last Avengers movie, there was so much buildup for that, and just so much passion for that, and then it seemed like a couple of weeks later, what happened? Where it was just done.
It's the way. Well, they did some research. I read that there's a reason things like Game of Thrones, like certain shows, have because like you have to wait each week to see it. So that show is a part of your life for months and months. Whereas if you've been
appointment viewing, that you all that everyone in America had that same date with that same show that time every week.
Months and years. Like you think about the famous sitcoms we grew up on and movies. Now you binge watch it, and so in one day it's in and out of your consciousness. You can't retain. It doesn't. Like I can remember, TV growing up, even bad good shows like Different Strokes or whatever. Like, I remember seeing that show each season, year after year after year. So like 6-7 years of my life, I can connect things to different. You know what I mean? That doesn't happen. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a stranger world. It's everything's off the menu now, and I know exactly what you're talking about, because my wife, when the show will come out, she wants to watch, she'll just stay up all night and do the whole thing, like Ozark. We wait a year for the new season of Ozark, and it's gone in one night, and so it's just it's funny.
So, have you guys seen the reaction? I've done some research for the book and stuff, and started watching reaction videos. It's heartening that so much of the horror reaction videos I see, they're all about older stuff. Like no one's reacting video to like new stuff. It's always Scream and Candyman and Halloween. The stuff is I mean, the new generation is like checking it out. Like there is a certain cachet to it that maybe new stuff doesn't have. I don't know. I mean, are people gonna be binge watching even good stuff we see now 10, 20 years from now? I don't know. I mean, not binge watching, making reaction videos to like new stuff.
Yeah, no, you wonder, isn't it? Does any of this media have staying power?
Yeah. Well, in the climate today of having so much content, I mean, because there's so much of it, there still seems to be, it has to be difficult to get a project off the ground because, where's it going to go?
Yeah.
Hey, Netflix, we're full. We're full at Netflix. What are you going to do with it? So I mean, that's got to be very difficult for somebody like you, Jamie, if you've got a new project, to get it off the ground.
Yeah, there's only so many outlets for your project, exactly, and power seems to be getting consolidated to the hands of fewer and fewer companies. Now you look at what a behemoth Disney is now, and it's just they just keep gobbling up the competition, and it's where does that all lead to?
Yeah.
We're going to have one entertainment outlet or something in the future. It's kind of scary,
It'll just be.
It will.
We'll be watching Disney streaming on our Disney televisions, on our
Mhm.
Disney cell phones,
Oh,
driving
my
our
God.
Disney cars,
Yeah,
wearing
it'll
my
be the
Disney
death of
shoes.
choice,
Yeah.
it's scary to think. And then there'll be a whole lot of movies that cease to become available
Mhm.
once we lose physical media.
Yes.
It'll be down to who has the rights to stream those particular titles, and that's something that's always concerned me.
I was gonna bring up physical media, but I was gonna bring it up to the two authors because that affects
Yes.
the book world too. Physical media is also the
Yeah.
novel, and that's kind of going away also. How do you, I mean, what do you got, Peter and Mike? What do you think the future holds for physical media as far as book form?
Well, I'm a big proponent of fighting. I feel like you need to hold on to windows, and that includes books. So, like, working on now, when it comes out, it'll be hardcover only. You won't be able to get the ebook or the audiobook. You can't just go and stream it in 5 seconds. I'm making you go and physically buy it if you want it. And then eventually later, like, I just don't understand this whole idea of getting rid of theatrical windows. I don't know why people think this is a good idea. Like, what is wrong with the movie staying in theaters only for 6 months? And then when you finally get it at home, it means something and it's exciting. If you want to wait, that's great. But I don't, it just devalues things to the point where it just becomes content. So there's something special about sitting with a physical book and, reading it and being exciting for it. And again, eventually you can, see the thing, but I think you have to keep those windows. So yeah, they are collapsing. Like, there was an offer for Crystal Lake Memories. There's this thing where, again, it's becoming the subscription model where you pay, like, I think it's $8 to Amazon. You can download any ebook you want. And I refuse because it's like, not that it's not about money. Like, it's just like, if you don't have that training, like, it's weird to me that people will spend $8 on a Starbucks cup of coffee, but they won't pay for music or movies anymore. They want to pay $5 and get everything. It's like, then it doesn't mean anything. It's like, I didn't work 3 years to write a book, so you could, like, pay 6 cents for it and not care about it. Like, it's kind of depressing,
It's very disheartening. Yeah,
it is. So I don't know how, like, someone who spends 3 or 4 years on a movie and then it comes out in 1 week and then it's on streaming and then no one cares about it 2 days later. Like, that must, like, when I was a kid, sorry, I'm gonna go off on a rant. Like, you remember, like, E.T. played like a year. Like, yeah, like, you spent all this. It was like, wow. So I think you kind of have to keep those windows. But yeah, it seems like, I mean, I'm guilty. I do it too. I mean, there's some books I only get on ebook. Like, I don't need the physical thing. But yeah, so yeah, I'm a big proponent of kind of trying to keep it special as long as possible.
Yeah, I agree.
and E.T. didn't come out on video, and for, like, how many years after? I mean,
Spielberg withheld, like, Jurassic Park, they withheld that like 1.5 years. Yeah. That's what was so exciting. Remember, you got cable, or we could rent a video. It's like, oh my God, I can finally get this movie that was only in the theaters for. So that's why it was cool, because like, yeah, finally it's on video. But if it comes out a day later, it's like, well,
yeah, like they got Halloween streaming on Peacock at the same time it's in cinemas. It's like, I just don't understand that business model. I guess there's a pandemic, maybe they're about that, but it's still, I wouldn't want to be in the cinema's position with a situation like that, because a lot of people are just going to choose the stay-at-home option and watch it.
Well, and especially, like, the studios are going to look at Halloween Kills and go, this thing went day and date and it still made $50 million at the box office opening weekend.
Yeah. I'm curious, actually. I have a few thoughts on that, but I'm curious, Peter, like, with this new book, what have you determined what route you're going to go? Like, are you going to work with another publisher, or are you just thinking, I'm going to do this damn thing myself and make, do you have you resolved that? And
I'm resolving it now. Yeah, probably just myself, just because, like, well, that's the kind of the cool thing now. You can kind of do anything yourself, right? Like, it's like you can just buy an iPhone and make 4K video and make a super professional and do special effects. I mean, before, like, movies, right? Like, anything, like you needed a crew and all this. Like, you needed to spend years to learn how to, like, process film and shoot and edit on big flatbeds, and now, like, anyone can just shoot something super professional. Like you said, Piz, like, I can create a YouTube channel tomorrow and do a pretty good setup with some lights and make something that before, you needed a crew of, like, professionals who spent years in the trenches. You know what I mean? To shoot and it's a different thing. And now with LED light, everything's just so different. Like camera's this small. Like before, right? A camera was gigantic, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you need like 6 people just to focus pull, whatever, you know. So yeah, it's like I forgot what the hell my point was, but sorry, I lost my train of thought. But what was the question?
Oh, no, you said you're thinking you're kind of resolving that right now with your new book. But
yeah, I can just do it. You can do things much more professionally, easily. So like before, you had to have a publisher to do a coffee table book. But now, I can work with a broker, do everything. You can do everything, lay it out on my laptop. Teach yourself the tools you need and work with an art director. But you can do things so much easier. So it's not out of your grasp to make a professional product, yourself. So, and then you can make all the decisions yourself, keep the money for yourself, any product, like you don't have to share it, because you've all heard stories, right, about publishers, studios, whatever, like, you don't, there's never any profit left over, right? Like, you heard of the stories about like My Big Fat Greek Wedding made $200 million, and then when it came time for profit participation, suddenly the movie lost money because
they always do that.
Yeah. So,
where is it? Amazing. Some films have had sequels made, yet they claim the original movie lost money.
Yeah. The author of Forrest Gump was like, they told him there was no money, they didn't make money when he was supposed to get like, really, Forrest Gump didn't make any money, huh? If that didn't make money, then what did make money? I don't know.
Those craft services aren't free, Peter.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks doesn't just eat hamburgers and French fries.
A lot of creative accounting, that's for sure.
Very. I did hear from my agent some encouraging input on the front of like the physical book. Apparently, book sales have actually like skyrocketed in the midst of the pandemic. So, I mean, in terms of like what's going to happen with the physical book and so on, again, I feel like as a writer, I can't worry about it too much. Of course, it's something I'm like conscious of, but if my books end up being primarily read in electronic format, I suppose that just is what it is. But I think from what I can tell, it seems that most people are still getting the physical books. I think by an overwhelming number. That's my sense anyway. So I don't know. Maybe not all hope is lost yet, but I guess I'm usually optimistic here. I don't know why.
I don't know, Mike. Like, do you think though it's like because first it started with music, right? Like you used to have to buy music, then you could download it from Napster. Now it's streaming, and then that happened to movies. Like if that happens to books again, where people just start subscribing to Amazon books for $5 a month and they get every book, it becomes the same thing. Where again, then it's not. So I feel like books are like the last vestige of that, right? Like that's still the thing that people will still spend $50-$60 and buy a big coffee table book.
Yeah.
But if I can get, all the coffee table books I want for $5 a month digital, is that going to go away too? I don't know.
I was just going to say, with the kind of books you're doing like this, I feel like, the target readers of this book, they want the physical. You can't replicate that experience digitally. I just don't think it's possible.
You can't. Especially with a coffee table book.
No.
Digitally, a coffee table book. That's that just doesn't. No.
It's tactile. You want to see. You want to engage with it.
I hope so.
Yeah. So. Let me ask you this question, Peter. I posed to Jamie and to Mike. What was it about horror that drew you in? Because like I was saying to them, and I think we all had a similar background. We were just normal blokes. We weren't abused. We weren't locked in closets. You know what I mean? But there was something about horror. Well,
okay.
But there was still something about us that drew us to the darker side of entertainment. What do you think it was about that drew you to it?
That's a good question. Did you guys already chime in with your
Yeah.
Right, well, mine might be a little dark, but I think honestly because my dad died when I was a baby, so in a car accident. So I grew up where death was just like a part of life since I was a kid. So I never had I could never relate to Disney. I didn't have so as my mom was suffered from depression, obviously, because I was the youngest of 4 kids. So horror movies are the only movies that dealt with those kind of subjects. Because normally deaf people want to talk about, right? As a kid, you're supposed to watch happy Disney movies and
Right.
Blah 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 blah. So like, I always gravitated towards serious dramas, about loss, and I mean that's what horror movies are, right? I mean, dealing with loss and death. I mean, that's the whole in different forms. So that was compelling to me. It was just that was the only way I could see myself and what I was going through depicted anywhere. So, I mean, I enjoyed some of their kid movies, but like it just wasn't, the same. So yeah, sorry, that's a really dark answer, but yeah, for me, it's personal. Yeah, I'm drawn to that kind of subject matter and that because seriousness, I guess. So, yeah, I feel like I'm the psychiatrist's couch right now. So, but too, I don't know, there's something fun too, like I always think of like slasher movies, especially as a kid. Like, I don't know if peekaboo's the right word, but like there's something fun about that form of like, putting on, you're a kid and you're Halloween, you put on a mask, you scare your friends, you watch Friday Halloween, it's like Michael Myers is playful almost, like, and there's something about that is really fun. That whole mechanism, I don't know, I always enjoyed that, and like setting up a scare and a spook. It's like there's something just fun and childlike about it in a good way. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that stuff's fun.
And I mean, I think too, of all the genres, horror is the one that seems to have the best possibility to just entertain me. So
like I like sci-fi and stuff, but yeah, there's something compelling about horror that connected with us in some deep way. Like yeah.
I think the fact that I'm a Satanist too, that helped. So whatever.
Well, I think we're also not afraid to cross boundaries, right? Like most horror movies are transgressive in some sense. Like they're always last house on the left through whatever. Like we're not afraid, I guess, to go into those dark, serious.
Yeah, the dark places.
Yeah.
So where does transgression go if Disney buys up everything? And they're controlling what kind of content gets made. That's a scary thought too.
They might be Disney, but they still want money. So if horror is popular, Disney will make their own horror wing. It'll be I don't know what you'd call it. It'd be like the Dimension wing of Disney, minus the the meetings in the hotel rooms and what you're doing in the plant.
Well, I'll be curious because Disney Plus right now, it's for kids. Like it's fine, it's like it's traditional Disney, but are they going to do a streaming platform for adults that are going to show the R-rated movies? Because what happens, all those Disney movies, they don't put on Disney Plus. You're never going to see, I don't know what an R-rated. Remember Buena Vista, was that Touchstone? That was
yeah.
Drama,
those movies go, So
hopefully those movies don't disappear. But
well, I'm excited. If you guys don't know, there's something called Disney Movie Club. It's like RCA. It's like Columbia House Record and Tape Club for Blu-ray and DVD.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they put out Watch from the Woods and Something Wicked This Way comes on Blu-ray, only available through Disney Movie Club. So I just subscribed to Disney. I feel really horrible because I've subscribed to Disney, but I needed to get those two movies on Blu-ray.
Oh man, I want those.
Yeah, because Watcher in the Woods has been a long time in the coming.
Yeah. So I've never seen it, remastered. So
that'd be nice. Yeah,
you can get those two at least because I don't think those are on Disney Plus. I don't think those are streaming.
Those bastards. I gotta sign up. Oh man.
Yeah, you get to buy like 8 Disney Blu-rays and then you get your 2 free, and you can get those. But there's some other good, like Black Hole. I'm gonna get. There's enough. Freaky Friday, the original, Jodie Foster. So there's enough movies I can get that I'll do it just for Watcher in the Woods and Something Wicked. So.
That's really cool. Well, we had a couple people ask about the new book, Peter, in the chat, and I'm always asked about it all the time when I'm doing streams and stuff. What's the latest with the book? When can we see the book? I'm just going to say it. I got a sneak peek of Scary Movies not long ago, and it is absolute trash, filth, garbage. I needed to take a shower afterwards. No, if it's everything that was great about Crystal Lake Memories, but for the 90s era horror. And I would say even more expansive, if you can believe it, than Crystal Lake Memories.
Yeah, it looks amazing, Peter. It really just
good.
your way, man.
So that's the first. So we did the first layout draft, which they've seen. I'm finally like getting to the end of the interviews where like, I have to like stop. Like it's like an addiction almost. Like it's really hard to like, hey, when do you say no? So I decided to cap it at 200 interviews. So I'm almost there. So
Can you?
Four more left.
But you can't say who you've interviewed yet, right?
Well, okay, it's really so. One of the reasons it's taking so long, I apologize to anyone who cares, but Friday the 13th was a little different. Like most of the folks I interviewed weren't acting anymore, or this is a lot different. Like dealing with, oh my god, like some interviews, literally, it was a year of like negotiating with publicists and managers and agents, like a Courtney Cox or Jamie Lee Curtis, like those kind of people. Like you don't just send them a fax, and
Right,
it's like,
right.
interview, So that was part of it. And most of the people, I guess, are still, working. Like one interview I had, I'm not kidding, the longest ever, it took 2 years and 1 month to schedule. Like everything just went wrong. The person got a project, a pitch, some health issue. Like it was just like, so yeah, one interview alone took me 2 years to schedule. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's just, people have series enough, or, so stuff going on. So it's been a lot harder, a lot longer to schedule a lot of this stuff. So.
Well, it's going to be worth the wait, Pete. It looks amazing, man.
Yeah.
It's so gorgeous.
Yeah,
It
so
will
we're
be,
going to find more photos and just get as much in there as we can. So
I'm dying to
it's
get
a
my
little
hands
bigger
on that
too.
book.
Yeah, it's a little
Yeah,
more.
you'll love it. You
I
really
can't
love
wait.
it.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it'll be killer. But definitely when it's time to come out, you'll hear about it a lot here. And we'll
We're working on the cover. So once we have the cover, we'll officially announce it. And I don't even know anymore. Like, what do you do? Like, do you build a website still, or is it all social? Like, how do you even I guess do I create a Facebook page? Is that what I do? I don't even know.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I do have a website.
Cool.
I think social media is evil, but I think it's a necessary evil. And I've also, met incredible people, like President Company included, thanks to these platforms. So I don't know. I do use Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and my website. So cover reveals. Actually, for cover reveals, usually my publisher and I will go through, for the last 3 books, we've gone through Nightworms. It's like a horror blog, and they do like an official cover reveal post. So you can make like an event out of it. And I'm sure so many blogs would be dying to host a reveal for, I don't know, something like that could be cool.
Okay, yeah. So the old days was so easy. You just kind of wrote a press release and sent it out, and that was it. Yeah. We'll keep it. I'm pretty bad at social. I'm like you, Mike. Like it's great in some sense we're doing this right now, but on the other hand, it's like,
I know. I feel you.
You hear all these horror stories about Facebook and stuff, and it's like, oh man. But what else are you gonna do? It's the only way to reach people.
It's a necessary evil, yeah. And by the way, I just posted Mike's website in the chat. So MikeThornwrites.com.
Oh, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to talk about tonight? Any hot topics, gossip?
Does whatever happened with that Nightmare on Elm Street? Was that supposed to be rebooted? Didn't the rights go back to
Wes Craven? Yeah,
that one.
Or Wes Craven's estate. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, right. They go backwards. Okay.
Good.
I'm curious, because we're talking about the big franchises.
Yeah.
After Halloween ends, the movie ends. Halloween ends. Like, I guess they'll reboot that again, but like, what are we gonna do?
Listen. There's a reason why they keep showing you those Halloween 3 masks in the 2018 version and in this one. I guarantee you, they are gonna do their own Halloween 3 or a sequel to Halloween 3. No doubt about it.
That would be great.
No doubt.
Yeah,
I'm actually still here. Yeah.
And
then
after
love Season of the Witch, it's a great movie.
It's actually become my favorite Halloween. I enjoy watching that more than the other ones.
Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah,
it's so good. It's so good.
I love that film so much.
Yeah. And then let me tell you, after ends, give them 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
They'll reboot it again. There'll be another movie called Halloween. So we'll have 4 different Halloweens.
Oh. I would like this trend to stop.
Yes.
With the multiple timelines.
Yeah, the reboot sequels
Yeah.
with the same title. It's like just I don't know.
Scream, like it's Scream 5.
It's
just call it Scream 5. Yeah, come on.
I don't know.
You're not fooling anybody out there. Come on.
Yeah, because there are 3 movies called Halloween now. There's Halloween, there's the Rob Zombie Halloween, and then there's Halloween sequel that is only a sequel to the first 2. Or
it's
like
the 2018 one. So yeah,
well,
exactly.
I couldn't understand. It's like, okay, there's Halloween, and Halloween's a sequel to Halloween. Like,
yeah,
it's not even a reboot. That's what I mean. It's Halloween 2, right? In that timeline. Yeah. So why is it called Halloween?
Yeah, we've got 2 second Halloween movies that are sequels to their own Halloween movies.
Why does Hollywood hate numbers? What do they have against numbers?
Yeah,
it's out of fashion right now. Yeah, I guess we'll have Scream Kills and Scream Ends next. So
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Because they can't call the next one Scream 2, right? It's already Scream 2. So it's going to be Scream again. Still screaming. Oh, that's a documentary. We can't use that.
Yeah,
I know what you screamed about last year. Oh God,
I'd be curious to know if there's another Final Destination in the works. That franchise seems to, I don't know what happened with that, but I liked the 5th one. You know, that was 10 years ago now, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm guessing who owns that? I guess it's Warner Brothers, right? New Line. So yeah, I'm sure they'll make another one.
Yeah. Isn't it fun? Do you guys ever think like the movies that have been remade that you forget were remade? Like, oh yeah, there was a Black Christmas remake, wasn't there?
Yeah.
2 of them.
2 of them.
Yeah. I mean, the most recent one. I'm like, oh yeah, there was that. There was another one. Like, oh wow.
Yeah.
They remade almost all of the 80s slasher films. Yeah. I mean, even the House and Sorority Row got a remake, and
I covered that.
Right.
I can't wait for that book. Seriously, that's
now it's 2 books. So that Sorority Row is now in the 2nd volume.
Because
that's right. When I started, it was going to be 20. It got too big, and I realized so we split it up. So
it's like 90s and then aughts sort of thing.
Yeah. So the demarcation line is Texas Chainsaw Remake, because once that hit, everything was remake. So that's So the first one leads up to 10, and then it starts. If I don't die first, we'll see.
Actually, it's interesting you just brought up the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. I actually really like that director, Marcus Nispel. I think he has such a strong eye for images.
Yeah, he's got a great eye.
Yeah. I'd like to see more from him.
He retired from filmmaking. So.
Really?
So.
That's actually kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I think he's a little. I think he. The word was that he was a little difficult.
Oh.
Yeah, he had a manifesto. He was going to do that End of Days, I believe, and there was a whole manifesto about working with Marcus that got leaked online or something. Yeah, this is before.
He was super nice to me, but then it's different when you're talking with someone than working with them.
Yeah. I'd even heard that like he directed the Friday the 13th remake in like protest, like they wouldn't let him do something he wanted to do, and he was like, well, as long as it's in focus, it's going in.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
the 2nd book, you'll learn all about that.
Nice.
There, yes.
Nice. But yeah, you are right that Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, it's way better than it has any business being.
Oh yeah.
And the visuals are phenomenal. The part where the woman shoots herself and the camera goes through her head and out the back, and then oh my God, I saw that in the theater and I just went, holy shit.
And Ali Ermey's really good in that film too. It's scary being some Full Metal Jacket actually. So he's really good in that.
I actually kind of like the beginning. Not as good as the remake, but
I don't remember that one. I saw it. I don't remember.
Chainsaw. It's okay. I mean, it's like
Yeah, I've got to watch it again. I've got it there on the shelf somewhere.
Yeah, we've got the new one coming out to Netflix. It's going straight to Netflix.
It is.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is it called Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it is actually. Yeah, I think it's just called Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah.
Well, that's another franchise. Like, hasn't there been like 2 of them? There was one with Lily Taylor, which I never saw. Right? Like, I forget that.
That was called Leatherface.
Leatherface, yeah.
But wasn't there already that was Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3, right? The Jeff Burr movie.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then there was just Texas Chainsaw 3D, right? That one.
Yes.
That one.
Yeah. Went and saw that in 3D.
Oh wow, nice. So you had mentioned the Nightmare on Elm Street, like a Nightmare on Elm Street reboot. It apparently, from what I heard, it was in the works with Bill Skarsgård maybe playing Freddy. Because because New Line and Warner Brothers had made a lot of money with him as it. So if you can do that, maybe you can do Freddy too. But that was a while back. I guess maybe that's not happening anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, there's only ever one Freddy for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
the same here.
He's so identified with Robert Englund.
Just forever identified with that part. I just don't think anyone else could take it over.
I agree.
If they, I mean, they should just retire the character. If Robert Englund can't do it, I don't.
Yeah. It's like Norman Bates to me. It's always Anthony Perkins. Like, no offense to Vince Scott.
They tried it with a different actor. The guy's a good actor, but I mean, he,
well, there's stories there too. So
there's stories there too. Yeah.
They changed. They did so many things to that performance after post. So it was tough on him, but.
At some point, I think we just need to let these old franchises retire, and let's bring in some new blood.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, I don't know. But then Halloween Kills makes $50 million.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's not going to happen anytime soon.
No.
We'll probably see another remake of let's see. They'll it'll all be remade again. Yeah. Or rebooted, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Leprechaun reboot.
God, I hope. God, I hope.
Oh, there was one, wasn't there? Wait, wasn't there?
Yes, there was a Leprechaun reboot. Yeah.
See, it already happened.
Yeah, there was. Wow. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Was there? Was Warwick Davis involved?
No, Warwick Davis wasn't involved.
It's Leprechaun Origins, right? That's what it was called. I'm not kidding. It was Leprechaun Origins. Wasn't that the name of it?
Really?
So yeah.
There was one. The last one they did, they brought back the heavy guy from the first movie.
Oh.
They brought him back, and like I watched it up to the point where the leprechaun killed him, and I was like, I changed.
My buddy Brian Trenchard Smith made Leprechaun 3 and 4, and he told me they did the third one in Vegas without any permits. They were just running around and grabbing all the stuff they needed to get.
Wow.
That's funny.
Nico brings up my buddy Nico brings up an interesting point in the chat, and we're all friends with Don Coscarelli here. They've never tried to reboot Phantasm.
Yeah, surprising.
Isn't that surprising?
Yeah, because it's a great title. I mean, even if you've never seen it.
Yeah.
Another movie. Speaking of, I think a Funhouse is such a great setting. It would be it's a great movie. I'm surprised no one's tried to.
Oh, by the way, here is the Funhouse novelization.
Yeah.
Written by Owen West, aka
Dean Koontz.
Dean Koontz, that's right. Yeah, I just got that today.
Very good backstory. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in that.
Yeah,
like they fill out a lot of the characters.
Yeah.
So I have a different cover than that one. Actually, I have an old paperback of it too, but I wonder if it was regionally specific or something. That's beautiful.
Yeah, this is pretty cool.
I remember that cover scared me as a kid. I remember I saw it on the shelf. I didn't realize it was a tie-in with the movie, but I remember those eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, those eyes, piercing. Peter, coming to get you.
I love my novelizations.
I know. I've started my own novelization collection. I've got so much stuff already. Now I'm not collecting novelization.
That was nice. Yeah. My fall novelization, which I cherish.
Oh, I'd like to get my hands on that one. That one's
that's good.
Crazy expensive.
Find the Thing novelization. It's really expensive. It's like $200 online or something.
I'd love to get Friday the 13th, Halloween, and The Fog, but those are all just so expensive. So expensive.
I'm looking at my books on the shelf. I have.
So we've been going for nearly 2 hours tonight, just talking horror.
Oh, wow, it's 2 hours.
Oh, has it been? Wow,
2 hours. It's been 2 hours talking horror, talking everything. It's been a really fun conversation. Is there anything else that we can discuss.
Anyone
Anything
got any
else?
questions?
Oh, yes, questions, please. Anybody got any questions in the chat? Let me look through here and see. If you've got questions for anybody on the panel, please. Nico says, Mr. Bracky, I cannot wait for Friday the 13th, the remake chapter. I'm kind of obsessed with that movie.
Oh, cool. Yeah, there's some good stuff. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I'm happy to answer any questions or be surprised later. But
let's see. Shannon says, I'm looking forward to Peter's book. I can't wait.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you guys for your kind words.
Oh, Jeff has a good question here. Will Jamie Blanks be making a 4th urban legend?
I have no plans to make another urban legend movie at the moment.
There you go.
I think there was a remake going to be happening at some point, so wait and see what happens with that.
That's right. There was talk of a remake there. I've not heard anything about it in a while, though. So,
has anyone seen the I Know What You Did Last Summer TV show?
No, I haven't seen it yet. Is it out already?
Yeah, premiered on Amazon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see that.
They really expand. Like, there's more characters, and there's lots of nudity, male and female. It's a little weird. It's a little jar. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about it.
What about the new Child's Play series? Have you guys checked that out?
I want to see that too. That
Yeah,
I want to. Yeah, I love Don Mancini's work. So.
But, yeah, people say that one's pretty good. A couple of friends watched it. Oh, the first episode was good.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no.
And there's a new Slumber Party Massacre movie that just premiered on Sci-Fi. It's a remake reboot of the first one. The trailer looked pretty interesting, so we'll see.
You know what I've been obsessed with is 90s remakes of 70s TV movies. Like, I didn't know there was a TV remake of Satan's School for Girls.
Oh, really?
Initiation of Sarah. Yeah, did you know? Remember those movies?
No,
remakes of them. Like, Initiation of Sarah has Morgan Fairchild in it again. She was an original, so I've been.
Oh wow!
Those, yeah.
Those too.
For fun. Yeah.
Here's a good question for Jamie. Can you ask Jamie which Ozploitation movie he likes best? Chris is from Germany, but he's recently gotten into wanting to check out some Ozploitation movies since he saw my review of Patrick.
Right. Well, if I can classify Road Games as an Ozploitation movie, I'd say Road Games is probably my favorite. Yeah.
I recommended him Road Games too.
If you want something really trashy, go watch Turkey Shoot. That's a Tarantino personal favorite, and that's really subversive. Once again, Brian Trinchard Smith firing on all cylinders with that one. Yeah, check out Turkey Shoot. It also goes by the name Escape 2000 in some markets too, so you might have to look out for it under that title.
Shannon is really interested in the Shelter for the Damned collab. So,
yeah. Mike and I trying to make that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, working on that.
Fingers crossed. Send your energy into the universe. Pray to the old ones, or Satan, or your dark deity of choice. Yeah.
Especially Cthulhu. He rules over all of them.
He does.
Yeah, Cthulhu's best. Yeah. Thoughts and prayers to Cthulhu, please.
Yeah.
They are remaking Salem's Lot Magic Pumpkin 3.
Yeah. Again.
That is happening. Yep. That's happening. That is happening. Somebody wants a Chips remake.
Didn't they do a movie? Or was that?
They did do a Chips series.
Yeah, there was Chips.
They did.
I won twice.
Chris has ordered Road Games, so he's looking forward to seeing it. Good call. Good call. Yeah. Anything Richard Franklin is.
Yeah, they're worth watching.
I don't know if anyone knows. Meg Tilly has her own YouTube channel now called Tea Time Tea Time.
Right.
Because for years, she wouldn't talk about Psycho. She did a live commentary of her watching for the first time Psycho 2, and she narrated.
I think someone sent me a clip.
Yeah. Checked it after a Richard Franklin fan.
Because she didn't have a good time on that set, right?
Yeah, it was the hardest experience she ever had. Her and Anthony Perkins.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So she talks about that a bit. So yeah, she'd never seen the movie, so she live watches it. So it's kind of fun.
Oh, that's such a good movie, though, and
Yeah.
she's so good in it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's great in
so
that
good.
film. Yeah.
Yeah, so great in that film.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe Anthony Perkins didn't get along with on Psycho 3. There was the actress that was in Friday 5 that's in Psycho 3.
Juliet Cummins, yes.
Yeah, and apparently they didn't get along, but she's not in the movie very much.
Yeah.
So before she gets so
I get a lot of personal issues at the time. So yeah.
I actually love Psycho 3 as well. It's such
I do
a
too.
perverse movie in the best way.
That one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Perkins had some talent as a director. There's no doubt. There were some great shots in that movie.
Yeah.
Great shots in that movie.
I mean, like,
Beautiful
I love the fact that the movie starts with someone screaming in darkness, "There is no God." I mean, you know,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know.
much better than that.
the thing that I can't get out of my head is Jeff Fahey and the lamps. Like, yeah,
Oh,
I can't get that image out of my head for some reason. Yeah. But yeah, Psycho 3. I do like Psycho 3 a lot.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Psycho 4 as well has some interesting things in it, I think.
It's been a while for me on that one. I don't remember very much about
watch it on again.
Yeah.
Those are all sequels to the Gus Van Sant movie, right?
Exactly. Talking about remakes, I mean, that's the best one we got.
Yeah. Such an interesting experiment. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
It's been so long since I've seen that, but they marketed it as a shot for shot, but it's not exact. There's little differences. Yeah,
It was like a cow being slaughtered during the shower scene for some reason. It just it was weird.
Yeah, like I don't.
And it's in color, which is weird too.
Very strange.
Joe Cool says, "Hey guys, what authentic horror prop do you wish you could own?"
I've always wanted one of Seth Brundle's teleporters.
Yeah,
We'll call beer fridge or something.
That'd be cool.
Yeah,
that would be cool. Yeah.
Bela Lugosi's cape from the original Dracula. That would be pretty boss. I would wear that all the time when I was teaching, when I was, just, that would be.
I'd never take it off.
Oh, absolutely not. Sleep in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't he buried in that? Or I know he was buried in a cape.
I read that. I don't know if that's true.
Oh,
Yeah.
was it not? Okay, I've always heard he was buried in a cape. But.
Yeah, I think it might be. Yeah, I think I heard that too.
Let's see, authentic horror prop. I would probably go with either well, I know they used multiple hockey masks in part 3, but the what do they call it when it's the main one? The
hero mask.
The hero mask, the part 3 hero mask. I'd like that, or the chainsaw from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, that'd be pretty boss. Yeah,
That would be awesome. Yeah.
I would take the Elizabeth Dane piece of wood from The Fog.
Oh yeah, that'd be nice.
That would be good.
So that's something.
Yeah.
Or just get me one of Tom Atkins Marlboro butts. Just put it in a bag, give it to me. I'll cherish that thing, like make an altar to it,
Just Stevie Lane's White House, just the whole lighthouse set.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Up in the backyard.
Mm-hmm. Anything come to mind for you, Mike?
For the prop or?
Yeah, the prop.
Oh, Lugosi's cape.
Oh, that's right.
Cape.
I totally forgot. I was thinking about Tom
Sorry.
Atkins in my mind.
I know he supersedes all the moment his name comes up.
He just takes over.
Yeah,
he just-
absolutely.
he does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. We had Storm Warning. I rewatched Storm Warning a couple nights ago. Jamie directed the hell out of that movie, says
Yes.
Kevin Dudley.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Such a great movie.
Thank you.
It's on Amazon Prime. If you've not seen Storm Warning, I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Tom Atkins is Pizzo's dad. I wish. God, I wish.
See that? Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. God. Can you imagine?
Mm-hmm. Nelkin was your mother. I thought they had a baby. I don't know. That night of passion they shared. Halloween 3.
Big Crack Rock says he was buried in a cape, but it being the original is a myth.
Oh.
Okay.
All right.
a lot of mythology surrounding Lugosi.
Yeah.
Shannon says Storm Morning is incredible. So there's another Storm Morning fan in the chat.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, very cool. Well, why don't we go ahead and call it a night? We've been going for over 2 hours. We've talked about a lot of topics. It's been a lot of fun. Mike, it's been great speaking with you. I'm sure we'll do more of these in the future. You're clearly an awesome person. And I've read some of Mike's stuff, and it is incredible. So anywhere books are sold, Shelter for the Damned. You go ahead. Why am I speaking for you, Mike?
Yeah, no, and thank you so much. And it's such a pleasure chatting with you guys. Pleasure to finally meet you too, Peter.
Yeah, you too, man.
Yeah,
it's great.
And Jamie, it's always so good to see you.
You brother.
So yeah, Peel Back and See. My new short story collection comes out on October 29th. Darkest Hours and Shelter for the Damned are both available now. My website is mikethornwrites.com. I'm Mike Thorn Writes on Twitter. Yeah, so feel free to get in touch with me anywhere.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Jamie Blanks is on Twitter too.
Yep, you can see me there. Most
sure
days hanging out. Usually like when I'm watching horror movies.
Yeah.
Make sure to give Jamie a follow. Jamie's got some stuff in the works that we can't really talk about, but we will hopefully be able to talk about very soon. So keep
as soon
your
as we
eyes
can
peeled.
talk about it, we'll be talking about it right here. So
Keep your eyes peeled for that. Peter's book is very close. It's getting there. It's looking awesome, and as soon as that thing's ready to go, you'll hear about it here. You'll hear about it all over the place. Where can we follow you, Peter?
Well, technically, I'm on Twitter, but I don't post too often. But you can follow me. And my boring ass Twitter. It'll heat up when we start promoting the book. But yeah, so I follow you. I follow. I just never post. Like, I'm really bad. Like, who cares what I'm doing? So, yeah. And it's really good that, like, I'm at the store, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I never know what to post. So I get, what's it called when you get paralyzed? I scan it inside and doing it. So
I hear you. I hear you. Carlos says, Jamie, please, new film and music soon, please. The best. Any new music projects you can tell us about?
Well, I've got another one of my scores coming out soon through Howling Wolf Records, and I'm doing a little concept album with them down the track, which is going to be kind of like music in the style of Carpenter and Howarth, which will be really fun to do.
Yeah.
And I'm planning on scoring the next film that I'm going to direct, so that'll be really exciting too. So yeah, I'm always doing music stuff. Yeah,
that will be cool. And speaking of Howling Wolf Records, I got their 2 newest releases right here.
Yeah, nice.
The Witching Season and They Live Inside Us, now available over on howlingwolfrecords.com. Go check them out.
Yep, they were supporting. Great label.
Mm-hmm. And we all love books here. I'm getting ready to dive headfirst into this book, Cooking Price-Wise with Vincent Price.
Love it.
This man's going to teach me how to cook. And the only thing though, like, I would have loved if he'd given all of his dishes horror names, like, the bleeding lobster bisque, or you know what I mean, something like that. But I had no idea that he was like a for real serious, Yeah. But
that's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Let me do some shout outs here before we call it a night. We've had a very lively chat. A lot of great folks hanging out in the chat with us tonight. Carlos Sandoval, Zombie 7979, Big Crack Rock, Shannon, Joe Cool, Selmer Slasher, my buddy Dave Vanderhoff, Rock Music Forever 90, Robert Long, Magic Pumpkin 3, Kevin Dudley, Jeff Overing, my buddy Nico hanging out. Thank you for the super chat also, Nico. I appreciate it. Let's see who else was with us tonight. We had Al with us tonight. We had Wise Guy 100 with us tonight. We had Sinister Antics with us tonight. But thank you all for tuning in, and thank you, Peter. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jamie. Always a pleasure. Yeah. And I'm sure
we'll.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll do it again sometime in the near future. But until then, have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you again soon.
Awesome.
Peace.
Cheers. Bye.